So today we're going to frost seed some of my clover patches. You know, frost seeding is a great way to ensure that you get a good stand of clover in an existing plot every year. So I've learned the hard way over the years that there's no shortcuts to food plotting, and so making sure that you take all the steps to do it right is really important. So here in Michigan, you know, it's late February and we get frost pretty much every night. And the whole premises behind frost seeding is that, you know, when you put that clover seed, which is so fine, down on an existing plot, if you've got any, you know, spots that are a little thin or bare or whatever, each day that the ground freezes and thaws, it kind of expands and contracts and it puts that seed into the ground. So it is really the perfect way to get that seed in there. So it's simple, it's easy, you don't have to till anything, and it works really well. So I've been food plotting now for over 40 years, and you know, I've learned a lot, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've figured a lot of things out. But one thing I can tell you, for me, especially here in Michigan, that clover is the foundation to all of my food plots. You know, it provides a great stand. You can get a lot of tonnage out of a small area, and it can handle a lot of browse pressure. This plot right here, I've had in, this is the 7th season for one stand of clover. And by frost seeding it each year, I make sure that it really is a great stand. And these deer have got to eat right down to the dirt. I mean, they eat it basically 365 days a year. Now during the growing season, you know, it's nice and tall and green and lush. You know, if you get a little drought or something like, and last year we had a real dry period, and I ended up getting a lot of crabgrass. So you don't see a lot of clover in what you're looking at right now. But if you look real close in there, I mean, it's all clover underneath. So, and it's gonna pop back real strong. And that's where frost seeding really comes into play. Over the years, I've tried a lot of different clovers, and I have found that this BioLogic Non Typical Clover is, not only does it grow real well, is it resilient, does it take a lot of browse pressure, but they just flat like it. I mean, they love it. I mean, it's sweet to them. As long as you have your soil pH correct, you know, kind of in that mid-7 range, it's gonna do really well. So I planted this stand, it's on its 7th season for it, and you got to go through the right steps the first time. You know, you got to have a good seed bed. I'm going to plant that clover, I'm going to broadcast it, and then I'm going to cultipack it in. You got to have lime, you know, to get that pH right, and you got to have fertilizer. But once you get it established, it's going to pay dividends year after year, and frost seeding is just a way to absolutely ensure that each season. So this plot right here is exactly 1 acre, and you know, one of the things that I really like about that DeerCast app is that it's got that mapping feature where you can plot them out. So I can kind of plan ahead of time. I can go through and draw the lines around each of my little food plots and figure out exactly how much seed that I need. So this is enough to do 1 acre right here, this bag right here. But when you're frost seeding, you really only need to do about 1/4 of that. So a small bag will do 1 acre. And so I'm gonna do it at about 1/4 of the rate. You're just putting a light little area over it. And what I really wanna do is I wanna look for areas where I think it's a little bit thinner. You know, I'll remember from where it was a little bit last fall or where you see it in the spring, and hit those areas a little heavier. And then the areas where you see good growth already, you don't have to hit them quite as heavy. But I'm gonna kind of do a light dusting over the whole thing. And man, after a couple of frost cycles, that seed gets into the ground and it's gonna come in really good. So I've got a lot of different broadcast seeders for doing food plots. You know, I've got some I can pull behind my side-by-side. I've got different, you know, the bag ones and things like that. But I like this little grass seeder like this. It's small, it's easy. We're not doing volumes of seed. You know, this clover seed is really fine, and it has real fine settings. So I do it on the #1 setting. It's just enough to get a nice, fine, light coating over the whole food plot. If I got an area that's a little bit thinner, I may go over it twice, but that way I know I'm, you know, using the seed at the proper rate for it. So, I mean, this seed is fine, it's expensive, so I wanna make sure that I'm getting just a good even coat, and I'll walk it back and forth and just, you know, basically follow my lines to make sure that I'm getting good coverage. We work really hard on our farm to improve really all the habitat, you know, from the timber to the field edges, but food plots are a big part of that. You know, here in Michigan, you can't bait. You can't have any feeders out or anything like that. So not only is it important to have good food plots to provide a food source and and draw deer to you, but I want to give them that nutrition for the whole year. You know, you want those bucks to be, you know, realizing their potential to grow the best antlers they can. And clover is a big part of that. It's real high in protein, but it's just as important, you know, for the turkeys and for the does as they're getting ready to have those fawns. And once they have those fawns, to have a great food source while they're lactating, and clover is a big part of that. I love getting out in the woods this time of year. I mean, literally 10 minutes later, I've got this 1 acre clover plot frost seeded and ready to go. So we're gonna move on to the next one. We plant a lot of different types of biologic in our food plots, but one that I've found that just really works, gives me a lot of variety in one plot, and I end up with a good clover plot when it's done, is Mossy Oak Biologic Last Bite. So, you know, the Drury's came up with this blend. It's got some cereal grains, it's got non-typical clover, and it's got some winter bulbs and sugar beets. So it's got some brassicas, some cereal grains, and that clover. And so I planted a stand of it here, and you can see, you know, the cereal grain is pretty much done with it. The brassicas, they're just an annual, so they're not going to come back at all, but there's a good bit of clover starting to grow in here. So if I just frost seed over this, I can actually end up with a good stand of clover. So I learned that, you know, from those guys just telling me, saying, hey, this is a great way if you want to get a clover plot established to get it going. And you know, I've seen it here, this one is really full already. So if I frost seed it, it should come in really good. I like to plant clover in the fall. You know, if I plant it in the spring, I get a lot of competition for weeds and things like that. So, you know, most of my spring plots are just, you know, those cereal grains and things like that, corn and soybeans and that. Most of our fall plots, that's where we do our brassicas, we plant our clover, you know, some other, you know, oats, you know, cereal grains, things like that. Some of these other blends that we have, like Last Bite's one of my favorites. And I've got a lot of those that have some clover in it as well that we're gonna frost seed. So when hunting season comes around in the fall, you know, we're gonna have great clover plots. We're gonna have some good fall plots with some brassicas and things like that. We'll still have some corn and soybeans. So we just try to give them a lot of diversity and give them food that can kind of get them through all seasons of the year. You know, I love being out here this time of the year in the spring. You can just really see everything. You can see the trails from the deer from, you know, through the winter and stuff, just how they're using it. Obviously, you can see all the scrapes and stuff around the food plots, and we're gonna find some sheds too, for sure. I mean, around the edges of these and that, a lot of times you'll see them right in the food plot, but they bed real close to, you know, to these areas. I mean, they've been in this one all winter long, just pounding it. They've got it ate right down to the dirt. So we're gonna frost seed this in some non-typical clover, and it'll be a great stand of clover. Even by turkey season, this thing will be green and lush. Look here. I know this deer right here. This is a really nice up and comer that we've got. That brow tine, he's got that little hook on the end of it. I got a lot of pictures of this deer, so good to see that he made it through. That's fantastic. Got this one all finished up. Found a really good shed of a deer, an up and comer that we know we've got out there. So hopefully we can find the other side. But this food plot right here is a really good one. I've got, you know, a big open area with a kind of a destination plot, and it's kind of nice and secure around here. They scrape around a lot of these bushes and things like that here. And I had a trail camera right there on one of these scrapes, and I caught a sequence of a coyote killing an adult doe right here on camera. I mean, it's just, Mother Nature's tough. And but I got the whole sequence on a Spartan camera video right here, and it just, you can see that there's hair, there's coyote poop all over the place in here. I mean, they're definitely focused on it too. So, I mean, these food plots attract every bit of wildlife. Quick and easy, you know, I mean, a small spot like this is just a great spot. I've got a ladder stand right here, get a lot of deer activity in here. I planted this last year in Last Bite. It's just a spot we opened up in the woods. And that's what I love about this non-typical clover, is that even if you don't have a big area or a big food plot, even just trails or lanes through the woods. If you turn it up a little bit or frost seeding like this, you can get a great stand of clover established in even little tight areas. Doesn't take a big area to make a difference. The great thing about frost seeding is it doesn't take real long. And look here, found another little shed. That's just a good little yearling 8-point, but that's what you want to see, is those that have 8 points or better right when they're a yearling. So, this whole process, it's so simple. Once you got clover established, like this was a last bite plot from last year, a BioLogic last bite, and it's got some good clover already coming in. So if I just frost seed it this time of the year, I'm gonna end up with a good stand of clover. So that's what I've learned, is that any place that I wanna reestablish it, instead of just starting from scratch in the fall, I can have a great fall food plot, and then the next spring just overseed it, frost seed it with non-typical clover, and I'm gonna get a great stand from there that'll last years and years if you take care of it. Last spot. So man, it doesn't take long to get it done. This is just a little gas line right away that we widened out, and put clover in here too. So frost seeding it's simple, it's super effective, and man, it just works. So even in small little areas like this, I can get a great stand of clover, and the deer and the turkeys, they love it.